All right, as a RAADfest attendee, we should all be activists of super longevity. We should be all championing change, and that is what our next panel is going to be about. To help us learn more, they put together a stellar group of activists, and it's going to be led by our moderator, Maria Entraigues Abramson. Maria was born in Argentina and is the director of global outreach for the SENS Foundation. She is a radical change maker devoted to extending healthy lifespans through new biotechnologies and regenerative therapies. Please welcome Maria Entraigues Abramson.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks again for having me again. I love this event. I love all my friends in the event. I love seeing every one of you. And I can't wait to see you in person, though. It makes such a big difference. But this is wonderful. And I'm really grateful that we have this resource to be together anyway. So we're going to talk about activism. And well, activism, advocacy, and fundraising have been some of the central activities of my job in doing outreach in the longevity field for the past 17 plus years. And I've seen a big positive change. In fact, there was no longevity field per se when I started working with Aubrey and Methuselah Foundation before SENS was founded. And it took a lot of activism, a lot of relationship building, a lot of persistence, a lot of pushing back to get where we are now. It's been very, very challenging, and it still is. And activism plays a critical role in the success of our mission. I would dare to say it is as important as the science, also because it is directly connected to fundraising and research needs to be funded. Through activism and advocacy, we've achieved so many things throughout history. It's one of the most powerful ways to steer our culture and society into a different direction toward a greater good. For me, working on our mission has been a learning curve. When I started, I thought, oh, this is going to be so easy because people obviously do not want to get sick, to age, and to die. But then I found this resistance that I didn't expect. And during all these years of working at SENS Research Foundation, I've learned a lot on how to become more effective at doing this. And we had to do a lot of improvising, as you can imagine, since we were moving in a totally uncharted territory. There are many ways of doing activism. You can do it through protesting in the streets, through writing letters, just newspaper, singing a song like I did a couple of days ago, through a film, a book, crowdfunding, through politics, and actually in as many ways as you can imagine. You can get really creative, and you may have to do so when doing activism against aging, since it is such a radical change that we're fighting for. That, still for most people is controversial. People are innately scared of change, even if this change is for good. But there needs to be a whole process before it can be accepted. And that's when activism comes in. Also, it helps to clarify all the misconceptions people have about our mission in particular. I have to say that I don't have one answer about how we can do this best, but I do have many ideas on how we can do it better after so many years of doing it. Also, the world has changed in regards to these ideas, and in big part because of all the activism that we've done, obviously. And it seems like people are starting to open up to the possibility of radical life extension. So it is getting a little bit easier. And this also is why so many people are getting involved now. The ones who worked in this field when these ideas were just cuckoo paved the way. So now it's a good moment for people to join the crusade. Probably the heaviest lifting has been done and it will not be called insane like we were. So hop on. A very efficient way of doing activism is through arts. We're highly influenced by arts and culture. And there's a huge connection with science and the decisions made based on it. If you think about it, that's how we conceive and design our future. Arts and culture are very critical for us to push the boundaries And this is how we constantly move the possibilities of what's acceptable. We need arts and culture to carry the message to the public. The message of what's going to be the next accepted rules, to express what future we want. And arts tell culture what is acceptable and when, setting the new standards. For example, culturally, people have always wanted immortality. And art in religion has depicted eternal life for hundreds of years, people going to heaven to continue life there under the glory of God. Everything is possible beyond this life. But when we say the same can be achieved through science, our arts and culture show it as creepy, unethical, unnatural. The idea of the fountain of youth is shown as evil through movies constantly, right? We need to get rid of this stigma. And that's our biggest challenge. We need to make a social and cultural change for our mission to succeed. And that's what exactly activism can do for us. That's why what activism exists for. Once this social change is achieved, these new ideas will be accepted, then funding will be available, and then science will move super fast. I know it sounds easier. Yeah, it's not that easy, but yes, that's the goal. But it starts with us. It starts with each of you out there to help spread the word and advocate to reimagine aging and a healthy and open-ended future full of opportunity without the limitations imposed by age-related disease and dying from it. A world free of pain and suffering that we have to go through now. One of the biggest examples of activism is RAADfest. And thanks to this amazing event, today we have this wonderful panel comprised of people who are leaders on activism and advocacy in the mission of not aging and not dying. And I'm looking forward to peeling this apart together and sharing our experience. Please welcome Gennady, Stolyarov, chairman of the US Transhumanist Party, Jose Cordeiro, engineer, economist, futurist, transhumanist, and revolutionary. Ilana Lea, fundraiser guru for the Coalition for Radical Life Extension and physical trainer extraordinaire. Neal VanDeRee, director of the Church of Perpetual Life, for Perpetual Life, and Joe Bardin, communications director at People Unlimited. Joe, I'm going to pass the baton to you so that you can steer this, you can moderate.
Okay, great to be with all of you, and great to be with everybody at RAADfest. I loved what you talked about, Maria, and when you talk about a learning curve, yeah, there is a learning curve, and there has been a learning curve for all of us. So what I'd love to do with some of this time is just to have a lively discussion here with all of us, and also with people who are listening in, because we have some legit activists who are watching this event also. And just to start with, I'd like to talk about what we found that works and what we found that does not work in promoting our revolution. And let's start with what doesn't work. Start with experiences, things we've tried that don't work. Because I think one thing that's important for where we are is we need to learn from each other. We need to learn from one another, and we all need to benefit from experience, so we're not just reinventing the wheel. Like Maria said, some of us have been at this for quite a while, decades, and we've learned some things, and we've learned some things the hard way too. And so I'd love to talk about that and to start with. So who would like to go first and talk about something that does not work? Yes, Neal, please.
So Joe, so what does not work? There are people that will embrace the concept of longevity and extreme longevity, and there are people that simply won't accept it, simply don't want to hear about it, simply are just have these walls built up. So if you spend a great deal of time trying to convince these people that it's something that's available, or trying to persuade them to join us, you're wasting time with these people. And it's important to make a determination quickly into the conversation or into your introduction to these people to determine, are they going to be open-minded? Will they consider it? Or are they going to be completely shut down and they don't want to hear anything about it? That's very important, because there are some people that we can say that will join us and that will live a long, long time, but others, they just don't want it for whatever reason. It's too ingrained in them. The deathist concepts, the ideas that have been hammered into their head that they're going to someday die and go to a fantasy place. That's in their psyche that can't somehow come out. Maybe there are many people that I love who are of that mold, and I don't just completely quit on them because I care about them so much. So I'll bring the concept up every now and again, but I won't spend hours or days or a great deal of time, because it's time that I can spend in other places meeting other people who are immortalists or who want to be involved with our movement here. And before I get it too much further, I just want to applaud everyone who's come to the RAADfest. This is a great place. This is a great event. You made the right decision to spend some money and some time to do something that can change your life. Your life may change from this event. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Neal. Great answer. Who else? Yeah, Gennady, please.
Yes, I'd like to build off of Neal's comments. I agree. There are so many more potential advocates and supporters of radical life extension than currently participate in our movement. And in terms of what doesn't work in reaching them, it's being timid and apologetic. So there are periodic efforts to, quote, rebrand the movement or de-emphasize the terminology that directly speaks to longevity or radical life extension. And let me try a reductio ad absurdum. Let's say one of us approached a person on the street who has the typical reservations about life extension, who may believe in the overpopulation argument or the boredom argument. And we think, well, talking about life extension, it won't reach this person. Let's use a few layers of euphemism. Call it health span enjoyment, not even health span extension. And we try to communicate our message through those euphemisms. That person will see right through that. And that person will still bring up the overpopulation argument, the boredom argument, the won't it only be for the rich argument, won't dictators live forever argument. They can see through the euphemisms. It's much better to be forthright and attract the people who are already sympathetic, because in my more recent experience, I would say about 50% of the people who hear the radical life extension message are at least mildly curious, and they're not hostile at all. And the other 50% will bring up the typical reservations, but as Maria said, they'll no longer consider us crazy. So being forthright about what we believe in is actually a much more effective tactic.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think the temptation to sort of water it down or dilute it is a big mistake. I've certainly done that at times in certain contexts, and it doesn't work. There's a reason why we call it RAADfest, revolution. It is revolution. It is revolutionary. People know that age reversal is revolutionary.
Yes.
That's why they're either for it or against it or whatever. I mean, so.
And not everybody is a revolutionary, right? And we also have to respect that. Some people, this is not for everybody, and we need to understand that it will not be accepted by everyone. So
that's right.
So let me get in there.
Yeah.
Let me get in there, because I am a revolutionary and I like to yell, "Viva la revolución!"
Viva!
This is a real revolution, a real revolution. So also answering your question, Joe, I think it changes with time. I met Aubrey de Grey 20 years ago, and I was so happy to see him today celebrating 21 years of the sense concept today. In any event, when he began with these ideas, he was really considered crazy, a charlatan, maybe even the Antichrist by some people. And now this is becoming more normal. So I think we need to keep on doing a lot of advocacy. I do advocacy in any possible way all the time, because this is a war against aging and death. This is a revolution between us and death. And I like to say, if we don't kill death soon, death will kill us. So I organize events actually based on ideas from RAADfest as well. I am organizing a fantastic event called Transvision in Madrid. also because we are around the planet. I am so happy to see you, Joe. And then also Gennady in the state of Nevada, and Neal in the state of Florida, and Maria in California. So I'm taking these ideas to Spain as well. And so much that I am organizing it at the College of Medicine of Spain, the most beautiful classical auditorium in all of Spain, so that people understand that this is real. Even medical doctors understand that this is real. I want to convey this message of hope, reality, real science. And also I keep on writing books. I'm very proud of my latest book, which is called in Spanish, The Death of Death, La Muerte de la Muerte. Then it came out in Portuguese, A Morte da Morte. Then in French, La Mort de la Mort. Then in Russian, Gennady, you can read this. My book came in two different editions, the white and black edition. And I am so happy. It just came out in Chinese. And there is a long list of further editions. So I'm truly pushing this movement all over the world with the help of all the RAADfesters and all these revolutionaries, because this is a revolution. So once again, the cry is, Viva la Revolución!
Yeah.
So Jose,
Right on. So
You're a truly activist, Jose. You are.
yeah, he really is.
Yes.
So what about you, Lana? Things
Yeah.
that haven't worked in your experience?
Yeah.
Because Lana's really, she's somebody who really has talked to a lot of people, and I know that.
Yes, I talk to a lot of people. Just my profession as a fitness personal trainer for 20 years. I'm talking to people about their health and about immortality, living forever, and getting better all the time. And I must say that I have evolved in the way I speak to people. I grew up in Israel, and I spent my first 25 years there, and I kind of developed this kind of almost like militant harshness, which is really not me. Really, I'm like this passionate person. So in the beginning, I would come out a little more like righteous and like preaching and strong in a way that wasn't complimentary, not for me and not for the other person. And I've had to, throughout the years, I've had to shed that out and just lead with my heart, lead with my passion, make sure that what I'm conveying and expressing feels good to me. Because if it doesn't feel good to me, it's not going to feel good to the other person. And from that place, I've really, I was able to touch many people. What they're going to do with it, I cannot control. But I could feel that I could go into them, into their gut, into their heart, and make them feel what I'm feeling for them. And so that was a big development for me.
Yeah.
In what works now, what didn't work before.
That's a great point. Go ahead, Neal.
That's so important, what Ilana just said. It's so important to be genuine, to be true to yourself and true to this movement. You know, there's so much here that is of value. There's so much here that people really do want to know about. And if we can convey that genuinely, if we can be meticulous with our words, be completely honest and explain how, as best we can, what is going on, that this is an option, that death is optional, that life can extend to 120, 150, 100, 200, 2,000 years perhaps. But sometimes when you talk in 2,000 years, then you lose their attention. I like to stay in about 120, 130 and say, listen, when I'm 120, I want to have the health of a 40-year-old person. And they say, well, maybe that's possible because someone did live to be 122. So if we can keep it in in that form, then it may be more receivable, more acceptable. And it's so important to be genuine to ourselves, be who we are, be alive, be bold. Like Maria is saying, be bold, be out there. Don't be hiding under a bushel. Be juicy.
Juicy and juicy, I gotta have my bite, sir. Mr. The lyrics.
Yes.
No, I think what Ilana said about what she went through, we all went through that, I think. At least it was my experience, and I've talked about it with a lot of my colleagues and people in the mission too. And it takes time to develop the skill of reading people. I think this is a case-by-case thing. We can't say that one speech will work for everyone, we have to modify. And that's what I think I learned in all the years, trying to understand who I have in front of me and listening carefully to what I'm telling them, and then kind of like live, you have to kind of like slow time and see what you're saying, how they feel and read them, and then you adapt and modify, because maybe the person you have in front of you is not interested in hearing about immortality. Maybe that's too much. Maybe they will never want. I know people who truly will. I know they will never accept that, even if they had the option in front of them to take it. So, but maybe they care about health. Maybe they care about. Well, we know most people care about health. So when you associate aging and disease, and they can reason that and realize that, oh, that's true. That's what aging is, actually, it's disease. Then maybe that's what's going to work with that person in particular. So you have to kind of like adapt, and we did that in Sensory Research Foundation. We had meetings during all these years, always trying to figure out what would be the right language to talk to people, and because most of us wanted to go out bold and say, hey, come on, guys, aging sucks and we need to get rid of it. And people were like, what? Wait, aging is natural. What do you mean? So, okay, we need to rephrase that, So
I think another,
I would say,
well, I was going to say another thing to avoid along these lines is not enjoying yourself, because this is a long game here, and you might not realize it, because if you're just sort of getting into it, a lot of us have stories about we got really excited, and we think that we just think everybody's going to be as excited as we are. I didn't actually feel that way myself. I just heard that from other people because I don't know why. I was just, I'm more of a pessimist, I suppose. I'm an optimistic pessimist, I guess. But if we're not enjoying ourselves, it's going to be hard to really maintain our energy and our optimism. And really, this is the most optimistic posture that I know of, and probably that's ever been. And so I think the body language needs to be there as well as the words. So if you're talking about something so fantastic as not dying, which is really so beautiful and thrilling, I think we need to be feeling it as well.
That's true.
Yes,
I would say
living it and feeling it and showing people. Who was it that said we have to become ambassadors for this movement? And we are. Each one of us. We are all of the members that are watching and attending RAADfest are ambassadors in their communities. They've learned something here from RAADfest and can bring this information back to their friends and their families, the people they love, and the lives they live. Perhaps their diets will change a little. Maybe they'll get some excellent exercise inspiration from Ilana's videos or from Maria's wonderful piece. This is what we have to remember.
And my books too, huh?
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's so important, and every day reach out to people. Every day I try to reach 25 or 30 people to connect with new people that I can explain the great news that we have to share. You can do that in person. You can do that online. In person, I always carry cards. These cards in my pockets, and these are things you can quickly give someone. But engaging them in conversation, in lines, when you're in line to get something at the store, it's so important to make those connections and continue. But also, as Joe was saying, don't let your battery go dead. Keep your battery charged by connecting with other immortalists. When you go out into a sea of deathists or people who don't understand longevity is, you have to come back to a community, whatever community that is. You can create your own group, or engage with People Unlimited or Perpetual Life or Radical Life Extension Coalition. There are many groups now. There are hundreds of thousands of people who want to live an unlimited lifespan. Connect with your people to recharge and then connect with others who you can perhaps give information to. That's how I
think
Love your passion, Neal.
Yes. Yes, I completely agree with Neal. It's important to have a community of advocates to know that one is not alone. And we're trying to build that community from a political standpoint with the US Transhumanist Party. We hold our weekly virtual enlightenment salons where we invite guests, eminent scientists, philosophers, activists, to talk about life extension, but also life extension as it intersects with other fields of human endeavor, because people have a wide variety of interests. And what I find is by making these connections to other activities that people enjoy, that could lead the life extension message to be more compelling, because everybody has reasons to appreciate their lives. One just has to, let's say, probe more deeply and ask, well, what do you enjoy? What do you value in this life? Wouldn't you want to do it longer?
Yeah, that's why the message has to be customized.
And
in terms of politics, I would like to say that this is very important, very, very important. And that is why I support the longevity parties, the transhumanist parties, the immortality parties in different parts of the world. In fact, I ran as a Spanish candidate to the European Parliament in 2019. And in a thunder campaign, I got over 7,000 votes here in my city, Madrid, where I am based. And right now for Transition 2021, I have the mayor of Madrid speaking, and I am trying to convince him to declare aging as a disease. So in fact, we might have incredible news in a few days from Spain. So watch out on what is happening in Spain. This is political activism. We need to take our ideas from science into reality. And that is why politics is so important. Running for public office, like the longevity, transhumanist, immortality parties, like I did in Spain, and convincing political leaders like the mayor of Madrid. And I am very proud of doing that with all your help, friends.
Yeah, the political stuff you're doing, Jose, is really cool and really interesting. And I think we're going to find our way more and more in those areas too. I want to go back to Gennady's point. You know, when you're engaging with somebody about super longevity and immortality, age reversal, you know, what's a real step they can take? Well, because otherwise it's just sort of an abstract thing, isn't it? So a real step they can take is to connect with a group or to connect with a community. And realistically, you know, there's only so much you can cover on the subject anyway in a half an hour or an hour, and it's an unlimited subject. So inviting them or connecting them to a group, to a community like People Unlimited or like the Church of Perpetual Life or the salons, you know, that Gennady does, I think is a useful tactic. I want to, and I think along with that, I want to say, use the resources that exist. You know, there's already resources like People Unlimited, like the Church of Perpetual Life, like what Gennady's doing, that to tap into. Now, you might be a fabulous community organizer. It might be in your heart and soul to start a community. If it is, you should do it. That's great. But it's a big deal. It's a big lift. And I think we can all do a better job of using the existing resources, leverage the resources that exist. It's the difference between, you know, it's the difference between reinventing the wheel or just using what's already available. And RAADfest is one of those things. Someone sits there.
Yeah, so instead of being an activist, you can be an advocate. There's this little difference there, but that would be more like what you're saying. So they can go and promote what is already out there.
Right.
And it's easier than reinventing the wheel from scratch.
Right. And now it might be your destiny to create something huge, but if it isn't, you know, tap into the resources that we already have, and let's make the most of those. I want to kind of shift the conversation here because to a question that I see kind of debated online in a way that to me, so far what I've seen is very unsatisfactory. And it's this question of, well, what can we do? This is people who are already plugged in at some level to the revolution, to our movement. And they say, well, what can we really do to make a difference? And I've seen some discussions about it, and I'd like us to talk about this here. What can people do who are already interested to have an impact and to make a difference?
I think the answer lies in looking into one's own skill set, one's own situation in life, and figuring out essentially what is the most direct, what is the most effective way to contribute. For example, how much available time do you have? Do you have several hours a day to spend on this kind of advocacy, or do you only have 15 minutes a day? what is your financial situation? Can you afford to make large donations? Or is it more of a time investment that you would prefer to make? Do you have skills as a writer? Do you have skills as an artist, as a game designer? You don't have to be a biotechnologist, you don't have to be a biogerontologist or other type of research scientist in order to make a difference, though of course if you are, then there's a pathway for you as well. So I think it's important to understand that this is a multifaceted movement, and we require people of a wide variety of skill sets in order to transform the culture. And I think for every individual who is asking, well, what can I do? The answer would be look within yourself and come up with some ideas for what you can do. But also, as you said, Joe, there are organizations now which have put forward opportunities. If you have 15 minutes of time per day, or if you have some money to donate, there are ready ways to apply what you have.
Yeah, volunteer.
Yeah.
Many organizations that need volunteers. And then I think, like you said, looking within yourself and see what you have to offer and think about the obvious things that the movement need. And we always think, of course, number one is money, but then it's also spreading the word to help us change the mindset in a culture. So in any way that you can imagine doing that, like someone would be a filmmaker, would make a film about it, and someone else will organize a chapter of a certain organization in their city and bring as many people as they can. I mean, it's just a matter of being creative, really. There's not one answer.
Absolutely, there are many ways. And as you said, Gennady and Maria, there is time, there is money, there is your own labor if you are a researcher or if you are even a businessman, because the biggest opportunities in history will be in anti-aging and longevity. In 20 years, this will be the largest industry in the planet. Just like now, it is the high-tech companies, and 20 years ago, it was the energy companies that we still remember, Exxon, Shell, BP. Now it is Amazon, Google, Facebook. In the future, it will be longevity. So this is the biggest opportunity as well, the biggest opportunity. And that is why Jeff Bezos has declared that he's going to put money onto longevity, because it is not useful to be the wealthiest billionaire in the cemetery. Not useful.
I would say,
Good point. Well said, Jose.
I would say that if really everybody who's sort of plugged into the movement did something,
Right.
we would transform where we are now. So we're already transforming, like Aubrey said in his presentation. We're transformed from 20 years ago. We would accelerate this revolution radically.
Totally.
So, I think that it's important for everybody to do something.
Right.
And for everybody to contribute something. And if everybody contributes something, I'm just going to say we will be in a much different place. I want to give the example of the NRA, the National Rifle Association. Whatever you think about gun safety and gun control aside, the National Rifle Association is an organization of, I think, 2 to 3 million. And they have absolutely dominated the narrative around guns and gun safety in this country of 300 and some million. And the way they do that is simply by those people caring enough to pay dues and to support those causes. And they've been very smart in how they've leveraged their resources. Now they're going through a bunch of problems because they're full of corruption. But the fact is, you don't need 100 million Americans to dominate any discussion. You just need a core of dedicated people, and even NRA members aren't that involved. And many of them don't even support the most extreme positions of the NRA. But they support the NRA, and that couple million membership translates into a voice that is so strong that it's, for better or for worse, has really impacted American politics and American culture. So if we translate that to super longevity, and we just understand how many longevity people or immortalists do we think we have? How many transhumanists do we think we have in this world? If each individual took some action and put some money in play,
Right.
we would be looking at something totally different. So that the real challenge isn't how do we change the mainstream. It really isn't. The mainstream is going to do what the mainstream does, which is follow. The mainstream will always follow. And we're not followers, we're leaders. So the real question is, how do we activate ourselves? How do we activate our people? How do we activate our tribe? And
we talk about that very often, that maybe we do not need to change so many people's minds. We just need to change a few people's minds that are going to make the big changes, and then everybody else will follow that. That happens all the time with science and technology. You know, those changes are made by specific groups of people only. It's not that the whole world has to agree on a new cure for something, or they don't even know. Then they go to the doctor and they say, oh, look, there's this new thing. Okay, great, I'll take it. But they didn't participate in that, in developing that. So that's why also an important thing is, if you're out there and you know people who are in a position of power, make those introductions, because maybe the first big change in the longevity field will come from a couple of people who gave $10 billion, and then the science in 10 years will happen. And we didn't need to get everybody's signature in the whole world to agree with this. And then even the people who didn't agree before, when they have that pill, that they can take, I assure you they're going to take it.
Right.
Yes.
There's
Yes,
one
I
thing
completely agree.
Yeah, there's
Go
one
ahead,
thing.
Neal.
Let me jump in. There's one thing that every single person that has attended RAADfest can do to help this whole movement, and that is share that you've attended this conference with your local newspaper. You can write a letter to the local newspaper letting them know that you attended the RAADfest and what it was, a little bit about what it was about. And if everyone shares in their local papers all over the country, all over the world, there will be papers that will write articles about this RAADfest. A second thing, of course, sharing it to your social media throughout the next course of the week. Share a few things every day about what you are taking away from the RAADfest. And let's build this RAADfest up. And I so look forward to the future RAADfest. But I want to say about one thing. I was on my way to one of the RAADfests. I've gone to all of them, of course, but one of them, I was at a rental car place. I was getting a rental car, and a gentleman was asking what I was doing, and I told him about the RAADfest, and he came to it. He was in town just for that week, and he bought a subscription or he paid his fees and walked into the RAADfest. At that event was in San Diego, I believe. So I think I like to wear on my body things like this. It says "End Aging" or a cryonics bracelet, and people ask, "Well, is that a medical bracelet?" I said, "Well, let me tell you about cryonics," and that engages conversation. Let me tell you about ending aging. People will ask questions, and that will open the door to engaging in conversation on a one-on-one basis. And then, of course, in social media, make the best of it. Make use of your social media. Let people know what you're doing. Again, don't hide this. This is so important. There are many people in your lives that want to hear about this. Please tell them.
Yes, absolutely. And interestingly enough, I have this pin that I'm wearing. It may not be distinctly visible on the screen, but it says supporter of indefinite life extension. Sometimes I'll wear it to my running races or other events, and that's a great conversation starter. Now, I think you provided some great suggestions about what everybody can do on social media and in terms of communicating with others. More generally, what anybody can do is have a conversation, especially a one-on-one conversation, because I found those are the most effective in that you get to connect with the person. You get to understand the person's individual point of view, values and aspirations, and also any reservations that that person would have. And then you can speak to those reservations directly rather than just making standard arguments. But if there are some points where that person actually might be persuaded, you could identify those and build the conversation from them.
So important.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what you have to listen to them and then let them say what they believe and what they want, and then it will be their own idea and their own belief and their own truth, instead of trying to impose. So there's always a common point. There's always something that affects that person at a personal level in their family, someone that is old, that is suffering from aging, or so you let them go into this by themselves. You just guide them. And instead of saying, hey, you need to support this, we need to cure aging, and maybe like, wait a minute, what do you mean cure aging? So you don't need to do that, because then maybe you just lose them immediately. And if you approach it differently, they might just understand it and identify with it. So you have to give them time to process it. For all of us, this is normal.
This is,
Go ahead, Ilana.
Hold on, Jose. This is such an exciting conversation, and the word that comes up for me constantly is purpose, like purpose, aligning who you are with your purpose. And of course, we in this panel have this, but like Joe said, like imagine the 7,000 people, for instance, that are members of the coalition. Imagine they would all align themselves with their purpose. They get clear, because I don't really know. Maybe their purpose is just to, make their family healthy. But maybe their purpose is actually to impact as many people as possible. And so once they align themselves with their purpose, there's actually some activation that can happen. And I feel, for me, like I resonate the most, just personally, with the power of each person. Like they can do something, for instance, with the coalition and the contribution to the coalition. We're 7,000 people that are members of the coalition. If each one would donate, $10 a month, to the coalition, that's already a significant amount to help us move forward. But I feel a lot of people don't feel their value. They still have that death-oriented feeling in their body, that limitation, like, can I really make a difference? Am I really vital to anything or anybody? And I have an excitement, a passion to tell people, yes, you are valuable. And no matter what you do, whether it's 15 minutes of dedication a day to anything that you're good at that can, contribute, or if it's $5 a month to one of our causes, or anything that you can do will make a difference. It's like I almost want to wake up people to that actually realization, like, wow, I can make a difference.
I think people do feel what we say disempowered, and I think that is a feature of mortality. Is you can't do anything, but I also think we have a lot of. I think immortalists have been lone wolves. I think we've been weirdos, and I think we've been people who've maybe our families didn't understand, and we kind of went to ourselves. And we meet these kind of people all the time. We had a guy who logged on to a People Unlimited event he was riding around Utah in a trailer, and he didn't need anybody, and he didn't need anything, and he was, going to live forever. And I think if we understand that's a loser play. Okay, being a lone wolf in this game is a loser play. Now we might have that tendency, but we need to go beyond it. And I just want to say it pretty simply. Find an organization to back.
Right.
We're not all like Aubrey de Grey's or James Stroll's. We might not all start our own organizations or lead our own organizations. If that's you, if that's who you are, great, go do it. That's beautiful. But most of us aren't. Find an organization to back. You might not like everything about them, but do something. Okay? And if it's SENS, I think we still like SENS. If it's SENS, if it's the U.S. Transhumanist Party, if it's the coalition, find an organization that you could align with and back them somehow. And you know what? If we get 100,000 more people doing that, we're going to feel a difference.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to feel a difference.
The Church of Perpetual Life. I think we need to back also, and many, many more churches and synagogues and mosques and temples backing and supporting perpetual life. But I also like to say, I want to excite people. I want to get them really happy. And I tell them, we live in the best time to be alive. We are going to see more changes in the next 20 years than in the last 2,000 years. We are between the last mortal generation and the first immortal generation. Where do you want to be? This is not only about life extension, it is about life expansion, to doing more, healthier, longer, better. So people need to be excited. This is an exciting future, the best that we could even dream of now.
So Jose, I wanted to say the Russian translation of the title of your book literally says, "Death must die." And it reminds me of John Donne's sonnet, "Death Be Not Proud." which ends with the lines, "And death shall be no more, death thou shalt die." So it's a very poetic title, actually. And I find that to be an exciting prospect. It seems that poets, philosophers throughout the ages have found it to be an exciting prospect, and we are on the cusp of it. Our own efforts will make the difference between whether we're the last generation to die or the first generation to live indefinitely. I can think of no nobler, more worthwhile mission than that.
Let me tell you just quickly, because my book has been translated with different names in different languages because of what you said, Gennady. For example, in Chinese, my book is called Eternal Life, which is beautiful. It has two Chinese characters, as you can see. The first one is eternal, the second one life. Eternal life, or as you said in Russian, it has been translated as death must die. And in Spanish, Portuguese, French, and soon Italian, it is called The Death of Death in our languages.
You should
And
get
that
that.
was
Jose, when will we have it in English?
You should get that tattooed on you, Jose, those Chinese symbols.
Totally.
That would be a good tattoo for you.
Wait, it's
Yes,
not
I
in
will.
English? It is in English, yes.
It will
Okay.
come out later. You know, there is too much competition in the English market. But
Yeah,
the
that's-
rest of the world is virgin for immortality.
That's cool what you're doing. Hey, guys, we're out of time. I want to thank everybody for your inputs on this and actually for all the great work you do. And Maria, I didn't know if there's anything else you want to kind of end on here.
I have so much to say, Joe, but I want to say thank you to all of you. And that I think something critical is that science is starting to move really fast now. So in the next year or two, the more we see this progress and the more it's made public, I think activism and advocacy is going to become easier and it's going to move even faster. And so that's very important. Yeah, the science. This is now there's a big change in the science that I haven't seen in the past, 10 years or so. And now you're actually seeing it. And you're seeing that it's everywhere. It's becoming mainstream. So
Fantastic.
very exciting.
Thank you all. Thank you for a
Thank
great
you all.
RAADfest. What
Thanks,
a
everybody.
wonderful job
Thank you,
did.
guys.
Viva
Great being
la
with you.
revolución!
Yeah.
That's right.
Viva Jose.
Thank you.
Viva la vida. Goodbye, everyone. Love you.
Love
Live
you.
long and prosper.
Thanks, Gennady.